Welcome back. In a previous video, I talked about a line and being above that line or below that line. Essentially, being above the line, when we're above the line, we're light, open, and curious. And when we're below the line, we're dark, contracted, serious. The other thing I want to look at or bring back from that last video is a concept that the amygdala hijack, fight, flight, freeze response, being triggered, or having a negativity bias. These are all the same thing. We can use those terms interchangeably with going below the line. So now we're back again looking at above and below the line, and a logical question to ask is why? Why are we focusing on this again? Why go deeper? And the essence is that there is a state called above the line, there's one below the line. It's not binary. One's not better than the other. But we're hardwired to go below the line when we sense danger. And sometimes we need to come back above the line when there is no danger. Now we can stay below the line and deal with danger if there is real danger. So being able to sense where you are above the line or below the line and feel it in your body is one of the key components to being able to be able to return back from going below the line or from getting triggered. As you do that, and you begin to sense in, something really interesting shows up. This journey is not an intellectual journey. Even if you can listen to a lecture and copy everything that was said from memory, or watch a video and take a test and pass it the first time, this is a different kind of learning. This is a learning where we introspect, or we reflect inside, and we get a sense of our inner landscape, that essence of what it means to be us. To start on this journey, introspecting and looking inside, we're going to look at three things in the human body. And before I tell you what they are, before I even tell you what the first one is, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the largest organ in the body? I'll give you a second. What's the largest organ in the body? I'll give you a clue. It weighs 9 pounds. Sometimes up to 15 pounds. And when you lay it out, it's 22 square feet. It's your skin. Your skin is actually the largest organ in your body. What does your skin have to do with going above the line or below the line? Let's go back to a time when things were climbing out of that primordial ooze and taking their first steps onto land. Some kind of reptilian-looking alligator, I don't know, just something that begins to move like this. If this is Earth in front of me, and the sun is back here, and I'm climbing out of the ocean, the skin on my back that's facing the sun gets darker and less sensitive. And the skin that faces the earth, that's in the shade, this gets more sensitive and less pigment, right? So it's lighter colored. So the difference between this side of your skin and this side of your skin is very important in understanding above and below the line. If you feel the back of your forearm, just trace your fingers along it, and then do the same thing on this side. You'll notice that this side has less sensitivity than this side does. When we are under threat, when we perceive danger and we go below the line, we have a tendency to show this side of our skin, right? We put our shoulder into something and go, no, I don't think so. Or we fold like this, or sometimes we turn our backs. When we're below the line, we show more of this skin. Now, when we're above the line, we tend to show this part of our skin. It's more sensitive, and we show it when we reach out for a handshake or a hug, or we celebrate. Yes, thank you. This movement changes our body chemistry. Police and law enforcement know this. When they yell, hands up, or assume the position, they're commanding you to show the vulnerable side of your skin. And the data shows that it's very difficult to be angry and rageful when your hands are in the air. It literally changes your body chemistry. So that's why skin is important above the line and below the line. When we're below the line, we tend to show this. When we're above the line, we tend to show this. All right. Second thing we're going to look at is a muscle in the body. And this muscle responds to the amygdala hijack in less than 1/10 of a second. Now let's get an idea of what 1/10 of a second, and so I'm going to ask you, what muscle is the muscle that responds to the amygdala hijack in less than 1/10 of a second? First, here's what 1/10 of a second is. If 1 second is 1 if that's about 1 second intervals, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 1/10 of a second is about that tiny little gap between snaps is 1/10 of a second. And that's how long this muscle takes to respond to the amygdala hijack. In fact, it is so intrinsically wired with fighting, running, and hiding that it's often called the combat muscle. So what muscle is it that responds in less than 1/10 of a second and has a nickname of the combat muscle? It's the psoas muscle. The psoas muscle is a long, slender muscle. It's a tenderloin in a beef. It's a long, slender cut, and it attaches the inner thigh to your spine. And when it contracts, your leg comes up. And your leg can come up to kick, your leg can come up to protect, or your leg can come up to run, or your leg can come up to create a ball and to hide. The other thing that the psoas muscle does is it causes your torso to bend forward. So because it attaches to your spine, if the legs stay stationary and the psoas contracts, we end up bending forward. All right, so now let's take a look at what happens with this hijack when we go below the line. So what should be really clear right now is that going below the line is a response to danger. When we perceive danger, the amygdala takes over and floods our system with a chemical cocktail that forces us into a certain way of responding, hence the term amygdala hijack. So going below the line shows certain things that are consistent. So here's some things that happen when we go below the line. The psoas muscle contracts. We begin to hide our sensitive skin. We make small movements, and we expect danger. Psoas contract, hide vulnerable skin, make small movements, and expect danger. Let's look at the other side. When we're above the line, that's a perception of safety. And when the amygdala perceives safety, it floods our body with a completely different chemical cocktail. And this chemical cocktail allows the psoas to soften. Means we can stand up and be vertical instead of crouched in. We expose our vulnerable skin. The soft areas get exposed. Hugs, handshakes. We can make big movements. Yes! We're sending a message to ourselves that we're safe. And when we expect safety, we have all these things that happen to us. Above the line, expecting safety, psoas is soft, we show this side of our skin, and we make big movements. These two are really, really different. So the way we're going to tie these all together is the fact that they feel different, and we have something called afferent and efferent nerve signals. So afferent is spelled A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, and efferent is spelled E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. One of them is a nerve that brings in information from the body. So if you were to rub your hands together and feel heat and tingling, the heat and the tingling return to your brain via the afferent nerve signals. The efferent nerve signals are signals that go from your brain to your body, and they control your movement. So if I say raise my hand, or turn my hand over, or ask you to get up and turn around, we're using efferent signals to take control of our body. So those are called motor neurons, and then the afferent are called sensory neurons. Why this is important? When we perceive danger, the amygdala sends chemicals through our body, our psoas contracts, we show the dark side of our skin, and we expect danger. This happens in less than 1/10 of a second. In order to come back above the line, we have to recognize that that just happened. We have to know what it feels like. So the efferent signal says, here's my body shape. The afferent says, oh, it feels like this. And I can sense what it feels like to be here. Now here's the magic. When I stand up and I expose this part of my skin and I open up, for example, the front of my throat, and I begin to expect safety, I'm sending a signal of safety to my brain, which will turn off the amygdala hijack. So the efferent signal is the control, the hijack part that puts us into a shape, and we fight and we contract in and we pull away when we're afraid of something. And that is a survival mechanism. But by the afferent signal, however I shape myself, it sends a signal to my body. So if I crouch and pull in like this, I'm sending a signal to my body that I'm in danger. And if I stand up and open and express the more vulnerable side of my skin, I am expressing to myself that I'm safe. So now we've talked about yin and yang skin. We've talked about the psoas muscle. And now we've talked about afferent and efferent nerve signals. These three things put together show us what it's like to be triggered and gives us one path to get out of being triggered. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to leave you with three things you can practice. So if you find yourself going below the line and it doesn't serve you, meaning you're having a danger response and yet there is no danger to fight, there's no threat to your physical safety, the first thing you can do is to go and get curious. Lifting your eyebrows up, acting as though you are curious. Wow, this is really cool. You can hear it in my voice. Wow, this is really cool. And looking and being amazed and feeling like this. Going back to a time in your history where you felt absolutely curious about something. This state, as soon as you feel, wow, I'm actually kind of starting to get curious. That's you turning your body chemistry around. So if you're below the line and you can get curious about something, you're literally taking yourself into above the line body chemistry, which is one great way to begin to shift going below the line. The next one is we tend to shrink when we go below the line. Remember, that's a perception of danger. And if we shrink, through the afferent signal, we say, oh, I'm not safe. So it's like a turbocharge. I don't feel safe, so I contract. And then my contracted state makes me feel less safe and more in danger. And so this pattern keeps repeating itself. Part of the reason is if we don't move and we don't breathe deep, we're satisfying a deep biological survival mechanism to not move, because a predator's eyes track movement. So if you imagine a predator kind of looking through its territory until finally it perceives movement. Everything focuses on that movement. That's what a predator's eyes do, and we know this. It's hardwired in us. So part of going below the line is to pull in, shrink, get small, and don't make big movements. So the second thing I want to leave you with, the first one, being curious. The second one is turn this over. Inhale deeply. Drop your shoulders and turn your head from side to side as you breathe slow and deep. And it looks like this. There's lots of recent science that points out the nerves in the neck, the way we perceive the orienting response, looking for danger. All of these things are hardwired in us to calm down when we take large, slow, intentional inhale, exhale movements. So that's the second thing. Don't be small, breathe, move. It's okay to be seen. The third and final thing I want to leave you with. If you understand now that we contract and we pull and we do this when we go below the line, and that sitting at a computer, driving, looking at our phone, sitting in a car, sitting on a plane, sitting down eating, all of these positions reinforce to your brain that you're not in a safe place. So one of the things you can do is to get up and move. Walk around the building. If the weather's bad outside, just do some jumping jacks. Just do 10 or 15 jumping jacks. Change your body chemistry. Go get a drink. Go to the restroom. Go play a game of ping pong if you got a ping pong table in the basement. Whatever it is, get up and move around. Shake off what was there. That's the third thing I want to leave you with. So in order to not be hijacked to stay below the line, you need to identify, oh, I'm below the line. And then once you identify, oh, I'm below the line, then you can do one of the three things we've talked about, which is to get curious. Oh, geez, that's really interesting. What did I do to make them so upset? Or how can I get them to come back to the table? Or I wonder what happened to make them so angry. But genuine curiosity. Or drop your shoulders, turn and breathe, and make big movements. Or get up, move around, do some exercise. Those three things are ways to come back above the line. First thing's got to happen is you got to recognize you're below the line. And the best way to do that is to recognize how it feels. When you can recognize how going below the line feels, you can begin to identify, oh, I'm below the line or I'm above the line, and I need to change where I'm at. So, thank you. I'm grateful to see you on this journey, and I hope to see you in more of these in the future, and thank you for your time.